who's going to win in that from a Asia Pacific perspective comes down to who has the better policies to attract the capital. And I can certainly see places like India where they've got policies around whether it be Gift City, which Deutsche Bank's an active participant in, have set it up to attract foreign direct investment. They've also got policies around encouraging foreign direct investment into new industries in India. So who are those countries with the politicians which are able to create the right incentive to create the capital will benefit from this? The supply chain that China have built up over the last couple of decades are very, very hard to transfer overnight because it's about the education of the people, it's the quality of the workforce, it's about the knowledge, and it's about specialization in certain areas. You just can't transform that overnight. And also, to your point around infrastructure, China, miraculously and very cleverly built up the required infrastructure over the last 2-3 decades. Okay, and India just doesn't necessarily have that. And now it does have a young workforce. It has a very educated workforce, but it needs to build up that underlying infrastructure to be able to take on China. And there's a lot of very good policies. I've met with ministers in the Indian government where they're very aware about the investment that's required. And I think it's a combination of they have the right workforce, they have the education system, but they need to build the infrastructure around that. And that means the ports, that means the energy, that means the warehouses, everything that goes with these necessary industries. And that's going to be the challenge for India. European or Western companies de-risking themselves by sort of in some ways separating their business and saying, okay, the Chinese business is standalone, set up like this. So if anything ever happens, then we can separate that business and it can operate somewhat by itself. The Chinese companies are looking at that in reverse. Okay, how do we set up a business in the US? So they've got the technology, they've got the patents, they've got the the way to, whether it be solar, whether it be wind, whether it be all these industries which they dominate. So they're looking at setting up factories across Europe, setting up factories across the US, whereby they're manufacturing locally in those markets. So therefore, if tariffs are introduced around, and the tariffs that Donald Trump is talking about is 60%, for example, on goods coming out of China, then they actually have manufacturing onshore in the US or manufacturing onshore in Europe. So it's sort of the reverse de-risking. They're looking at how do I, if sanctions are introduced, how do I still sell my product into the US where I can de-risk myself from a geopolitical point of view. And that probably means setting up local manufacturing into those markets, which is things like the IRA, things like government policy, and things like tariffs are encouraging, which is, okay, you bring your technology, you bring your understanding into the local market, and you set up your factory and your manufacturing in the local market.